I think there's a certain rift in our movement that's coming that maybe evangelical Christian versus, uh, well, Flynn's and me. We're, I think there's a certain rift in our movement that's coming that maybe evangelical Christian versus, uh, well, Flynn's and me. We're I meant to. I'm looking around for my book. In my book, the Deep Rig, I do mention that somewhere I went off in the middle of it and set up sort of an initial work camp where we got people together and a fusion cell. And I said it was just away from the cities. I never disclosed where it was, but I see that Lin Wood has done so now. It was at his property in South Carolina. Mike, Mike has no idea what the fuck you're talking about. It's just that simple. Pegasus, Mike has no idea what the fuck you're talking about. Joe and I had a scheme, Lynn told me, to raise $5 million off Kyle Rittenhouse, and we approached his mom to raise $5 million. Okay, I think the phonemes, so that's the accusation. I think the phonemes Kyle Rittenhouse never left this mouth until about a week ago. Um, Joe and I had a scheme, Lynn told me, to raise $5 million off Kyle Rittenhouse, and we approached his mom to raise $5 million. Okay, I think the phonemes, so that's the accusation. I think the phonemes Kyle Rittenhouse never left this mouth until about a week ago. Got him through is the goodness of you, the people, who, there were old ladies sending him postcards with a quarter taped to it. And, over time, that's how and it's just amazing. You, the people, got him through is the. Oh, Mike Flynn says something about may the legions protect you, or something about, and it all turns into, people get all spun up about its secret Satan worshiping talk and its devil worshiping talk, and it's really the legions of Lucifer, and when he says 7 lights, it's a reference to that. Okay, it's time to tell you that's all kooky too. I mean, it's okay if you believe all that. If you speak in that context yourselves, but you have to understand we're all not secretly in that world. Okay? When Mike Flynn and I talk, we were not secretly burying satanic messages in our communications. And the fact that he gets picked apart for this kind of stuff, it's just silly. And it's way too time consuming. He has real work to do without giving interviews and addressing this. It's silly to be asking a guy like Mike Flynn to be addressing that. Sorry you don't know it. I was willing to tolerate it until now. I'm now laying it on the line. I think that people who do that kind of stuff are silly. You're silly. You're kooks. You're like Lin Wood. Flynn is much more what you would say religious in the conventional sense that I think that most people view him as being. But all that said, the evangelicals speak a different language. And you just need to understand that if you're evangelical, that when somebody else uses the word legion, we don't, it doesn't have all the connotations that it does within your context. And really, this kind of drama is not, and in fact, it's about time I let you know I'm disappointed in a sense, in you as a community. A deep part of why I'm doing this is for you. 6 months ago, there was no one who reached, 8 months ago, no one who reached out to me more aggressively than the evangelical community. Leadership across the evangelical community sought me out to convince me to do this. And they told me, you build this and we will fuel it. And I understand why. You know, there's 80 million Americans, there's a quarter of Americans. You will be the first ones fed into the FEMA camps. And don't believe a word otherwise. So you're absolutely right to be terrified. And you were terrified 6 months ago, 8 months ago. And you know what? You know what you called? Because there were 2 people in the country, well, 3 people in the country, who would stand up and open their mouths and keep talking and not let them normalize it. And you know who those 3 people are. And, you know, and that's why you folks called and asked. And you know what? They made all these promises. The leadership made all these promises that I do this, all the funds will be there for me. Everyone seems to forget how terrified they were 6 months ago, 8 months ago. Well, there were a handful of Irish guys willing to stand up and not bend the knee to this stuff publicly. And you all needed somebody to fight for you. And you know what? Here we are. We've got this bill. The funding never showed up. Never showed up from the people. There's been some funding. And I appreciate, and I really appreciate, you know, people have sent, I think it's approaching $2 million. Oh, here's another one. I think that the expenses to get everything stand up and going, and including about $5 million they got sent to Maricopa, end up being bordering on $10 million, of which about or approaching 2 came from the public, and the other 7 or 8 came from me. Okay. Anybody who's trying to convince me that Joe Flynn is really threatening someone's family, it's all just kookiness. This has been 27 minutes of wasted time versus stuff that we need to be doing. Now let me be clear. I'm still doing this. Well, I'm doing this for, you know, I'm mad. And he won't believe that when you're just using the last name, that Tocqueville actually ever said that. But it's consistent with some other things. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So I mentioned that to Flynn. So Flynn gives a speech, and he kind of, you know, ad-libs something about, well, America should have a religion. And, you know, some religion. And I think he was thinking, I think he'd been thinking about what I had told him the day before about this thing by Tocqueville, and it just, and he said that, and then the others, you know, that's out in the press is, Flynn's a theocrat, and he wants to establish a one-religion state, and, you know, we have real work to do, and this stuff, that, as ridiculous as that is, who's that, the New York Times saying? I especially love the black evangelical community. I think the black community is kind of a character capital of like a reservoir for us. And we're going to rebuild our principles, and it lies with them more than just about anywhere in the country. Say, go easy on Lin is what I'm trying to say. Fine guy, but he's just not connected. And I'm sure, I understand his kids don't talk to him. All I can say is like that time when I was a teenager and she's there, and you have the breakup, and whatever you say, there's snot spitting tears, and you said this that time, and you said that, and if I put them together this way, and go out to here, I find that at some point, just best. I hope everything. And Lynn, I hope everything's good. There's no reason. I'm sorry, I didn't understand that that we were all living rent free in your brain or something. I was really just trying to be friendly and and to the rest of the folks, I don't want to spend any more time answering the kind of silliness. Okay, we got real work to do. And if you don't want to be one of those people, if you want to get caught up in these dramas that I have seen, I have to say, since I've shown up at the edge of the evangelical community, there's always people spun up in these little dramas. It's like, you do it to each other too. Do you know how many times that you folks behind each other's back are telling me, well, she's not really this because she's really that, and you're finding all these crazy things to read into the scriptures, and when someone said this, they really meant it was code that they meant that, and you're doing it to each other too. It's like high school gossip girls, gossip. Adults, we have actual lives and things we wish to accomplish. So, again, I wish, that's my reply to all of it. I'm going to spend time answering silliness like this again. Thank you. Hope this clears up some big mystery that I understand is blowing up on social media. Say again.
I know you're mad with me, Patrick, but it is what it is. I only spoke the truth.
But it's okay. I'm not in the least mad at you, Lynn. I'm not in the least mad at you. I wanted to call you today, literally. I don't know what, but I wanted to. I thought of you so fondly all year. I don't know if you've seen how much I quote you and how I defend you and stuff, and softly. But I'm not in the least mad at you, Lynn. I think that you're a little kooky, and it seems there's.
Hold on a second, Patrick. Kooky is a word that would fit you. Don't insult me. It doesn't fit me. You call to talk to me, or you call to insult me? Make up your mind, and we can talk if you want to talk.
What was the first choice?
Talk to me. Don't insult me. When somebody tells me I'm kooky, and I know I'm not, the person that says it is the kooky one. Now let's talk about what you want to talk about.
It can also be said with affection. It can be a nice way of saying to somebody, hey, I'm affection for you, but let's talk.
We don't know each other, Pat. You don't have any affection for me. What do you want to talk about?
Well, one thing I wanted to do was talk about out of my affection for you. I wanted to call and tell you something.
Okay.
I saw something that you said about when Kyle accused you of this, which I immediately told people this is total bullshit on television. Flynn sent me you recorded some journalist who called you to ask about it, and you did a nice job tearing it up. And Flynn sent me that. I didn't know anything about these accusations. There's some guy named David Hancock is his name.
Oh yeah, Dave Frogcock Hancock.
Was he one of the SEALs who was down with you when I was there?
He had already been thrown off my property before you came here.
Okay, I wanted to tell you, do you still have the SEALs protecting you?
No, I've got some very good people, but they're not SEALs.
Good for you. What I've been wanting to call and tell you, and I even kind of wanted to tell you then, but I didn't feel I won't know you well enough. That's a real problematic community, and you should not have it with you. And that's why I was looking for your number today. I'm always wondered what in that community.
Oh yeah, the SEALs community. I mean, they got they're good SEALs and they're bad SEAls. Kind of like in everything. Kind of like in the audit. There's good audit people, they're bad audit people.
Tell me about that. What are your thoughts
about the audit?
Am I a good audit person or a bad audit person?
Patrick, I haven't kept up with you.
Well, who are
I saw you wrote a book. I saw you made a movie. I didn't read the book. I didn't watch the movie. I know that you're involved with Mike. I know there's an involvement with Sydney. I know y'all are in defendtherepublic.org. I know that you have the America Project. I'm not sure where all this money's going, but I think somebody owes to the American public a full accounting. You asked me about Kyle. Fight Back was fully audited independently in 2020, which was the only year we, let me finish now, you raised the question. The only year that we raised money for Kyle, you want me to finish what I'm saying? 2020 was the year we raised money for Kyle. Tell me what I need to know. I know there's a lot of things I don't know. I don't know if the earth is flat or round. I think it's round, but I don't need to know it. What do I need to know, Patrick? Just tell me.
I'll tell you real quick. On March 5th, both Sydney and Mike asked me to move down to Florida and stand up defending the Republic. I said no, and they said, "Oh, it's all going to fall apart. We're going to need you to do this." Sydney was moving to Florida. You have to do this. I said, "I'll come down for 4 months and get it stood up, and then I'm going to turn the keys over to you." I came down. I lasted 11 days with Sydney. I'm not going to go into the details, but there's one day, 11 work days, 15, I came down on March 12th, 1 week later, and I can tell you on April 3rd, I think, Mike Flynn, Joe Flynn, Patrick Byrne, and the other 5 people that I had hired and built an office around all walked out the door on Sydney and have never spoken a word to her since. Now, you can infer what you want from that, but by working with me, Sydney, it tells me you're not. I haven't spoken a word to Sydney since April 6th, and I never will again. And
Is defendingtherepublic.org under federal investigation?
I walked out. We all resigned on April 6th. We walked out the door. I gave her a laundry list of things she had to clean up and told her she had to get an auditor and filled this and everything. She refused to let me look at any. Well, I can't tell you anymore. But I left her. We walked out after 17 days there, and I had hired about 5 people, and we had Mike and Joe, and we all walked out on the same day, and you can infer what you want from that. But you're a smart man, you can probably guess. And so I've been no idea.
I try not to guess. I try to take facts and connect logical. I do know about, and that is a woman scorned. I've had 4 divorces. It's not good. If Sydney wanted to bed you down and you turned her down, I don't know Sydney. I only know her from a professional standpoint, but that's really neither here nor there to me.
Well, she was incredible. If you've ever seen the movie The Devil Wears Prada, working with her was that movie squared. And everyone walked out the door, and yes, there were, in fact, just at the point, I don't want to tell too much, but I can tell you that within a day or two of being there, I said, I need to get my hands on the money. And she started telling me, well, here there's one account with $1 million in it. You manage that. And I said, no, I need to audit. We need to build accounting around everything. And she said, you can audit that one bank account. And I said, that's not how it works, Sydney. When I sign things to the IRS and the federal government, I got to sign for every dollar that came in, not just one little bank account that you created for me. I need visibility to the whole money. And then I got a CFO, a CPA, CFO to come in, and she said no to me. I said, well, I said to myself, once she has a CFO, he'll make her understand. You can't just say, we got a CFO, and after 10 days, he said to her, we need an audit, and she blew her top. And I said, no, we need an audit. We need to audit, soup to nuts, every dollar that came into this business. You won't believe how much money I heard came in. We never saw like over $800,000.
That's all I know about it. Except I've heard that there's a federal investigation. I could be getting bad information, but I don't think so. I think she's already gotten, some people have gotten subpoenas for documents.
I believe there is. I wouldn't be surprised if there is one at Park, because I made a couple comments in the places they needed to be made. There's, by the way, it's not 7 million.
That's what she told me. She wasn't talking about y'all. It was just, she said her foundation, defendtherepublic.org, had $7 million. She asked me to be on the filing papers. At the time, I said, it's a favor to do it. And then I wanted it off. And so she quickly turned around and got me out of it. Sydney signed my name to certain lawsuits without my knowledge or permission. And she hasn't been honest about that. And it's gotten me in a lot of unnecessary entanglements with bar grievance committees. I'm not happy about it.
Yeah.
Because I think I was set up by Sidney Powell. Do you hear me?
Well, since we're on the same side of this, Lynn, I'll tell you, that's why we walked out the door. The day I found out it wasn't, when I started finding out, she had told me when I came down there was 15 million. And so you won't have to worry about any money, Patrick. There's 15 million in the bank.
You talking about the day you came down to Tomotley?
No, the day I came down to take over defending the Republic and try to turn
March
it
of 21.
March of 21. Because, I haven't said anything. So if the feds are investigating, should do. If it was all I could do not to drop a dime on her, I thought it was the right thing to do, but I did make it known in the right places. I didn't have knowledge, and I consulted a lawyer, because did I have knowledge or what? But I sure walked out the door. Within a week of leaving, more facts had come in that made me think, holy shit, Sydney's just running this as a scam. She's raising this money. It's secretly for profit, and there's nothing, and she gave herself stock options. Have you ever heard somebody do one of these things and give themselves stock options?
I've never heard of. It's not anything I've ever been involved in, so I don't know anything about it.
No,
so I wouldn't be able to comment whether it's right or wrong. But the overall picture that you're painting is pretty bleak.
It's really bleak. Yeah. So I walked out the door. I won't have anything to do with it. And to be honest, Lynn, you're the first person other than Mike and Joe that I've talked to this way, because I haven't said anything. Meanwhile, I know she's out in the world. She also twice got drunk and really very directly tried to get me to bed in front of other people. And she got really hurt, and she wrote me love letters and this kind of nonsense about how hurt she was and stuff. And then when it all snapped and we walked out the door, she became super vindictive, and all she's done is go around for 6 months and raise and make up stuff about me and Flint. To cut me out. I won't appear with Patrick Byrne. She made up. I heard that I poisoned her. I heard that I drugged and date raped her. I've heard crazy stuff, and she's just that's it. That's all I can say. I literally have heard there's part. So she gets with people, starts rumors. One is that I poisoned her, and another is that I drugged her and date raped her. It's the crazy, what can you say? So
I'm flabbergasted. I've never heard anything like this. I don't.
6 months. I've never spoken this way about. In a way that told me he'd been coached, I'm sure you've seen it now, he made a point to veer in his interview over and make this point that Lin Wood left me in, but almost like he'd been coached to do it.
Oh, listen, he had to be coached because it's a lie. Once we raised the money, John Pierce, who at the time was representing him as the criminal lawyer, I never was. I was had signed on to help him with defamation after the criminal case. He told us to stand down right after we made the bail, that they were going to do their own fundraising, so Fight Back stood down. We took everything off our website. He said he was going to handle the defamation cases. I said, here's a letter of withdrawal, and I wished him luck. And then all of a sudden, I understand Dave Hancock got involved. Well, that's a dot that's interesting because Hancock was here right before Mike was here. But Mike was here in November. I'm sure I talked to him at times that I was busting my butt to try to help Kyle. And Mike Flynn sat silently. But Mike Flynn's written me all these nice notes telling me how he'd go to war with me and take a bullet in a firing squad with me. And then when Vernon Jones came after me, and then Kyle Rittenhouse came after me, old Mike Flynn got out of the foxhole and ran. So wanted to approach the Rittenhouses after he got out on bail to raise $5 million for him through the America Project.
The name Kyle Rittenhouse has never came out of my lips until last
I got a
week.
text message from Joe that says it's not from you, but from him, where he was trying to set up the meeting.
Well,
I don't say, Patrick, I don't say something unless I have reasonable factual evidence to support it.
You're saying Joe Flynn was trying to set up a meeting on behalf of the America Project?
It doesn't say that in the text, but that's what I was told, that it was you and Joe that wanted to meet with Kyle to try to raise him $5 million after I had made his bail. Whether that meeting, I don't know that the meeting took place. I just know, and then there was a confirmatory text that Joe sent. Didn't mention you, didn't mention the American Project, but it was consistent with the information I'd been provided.
I've never heard a word about it or Kyle Rittenhouse in the context of the American Project.
I had the impression from your text today that maybe you had spoken with Kyle since the verdict.
I've not heard. I've never even. I paid zero attention to this. It was clear to me that it was self-defense from the day it happened, and I've paid zero attention for the year since. And a week ago, I tuned in on it and said, "Oh, great! It's going to be the guy's going to get off." Other than that, I've never talked about Kyle Rittenhouse with anyone. I don't think I've ever said the name until a week ago. Said the name aloud. So I don't know where any of this is coming from.
Well, listen, I don't discount the possibility that the information I got was inaccurate, but it was from a reliable source, and it was confirmed at least in part by a text message from Joe. So I just don't, Patrick, I don't just go out and say something. It took a lot for me to discuss Mike and Sydney. And your name was mentioned because of the information I had about the effort to talk to Kyle. I don't know anything about the America Project. I just know generally you have it. Like I said, I know you wrote a book. I know y'all did a movie. I don't know what else y'all are doing, but I just know this, Patrick, there's a lot of money in this audit movement and this whole movement. Is that there are concerns about known that months earlier. So listen, I don't know the details. What I do know is that there are concerns about how Doug handled the audit. Doug was in my house with Mike Flynn. I don't know what he was doing. And so I have concerns about what Jim Penrose, do you know Jim?
I love Jim.
I thought Jim was a fine Christian man. I've had information now since in the last 2 or 3 weeks ago. Jim Penrose may not be who he purported himself to be. I know he was with NSA. That's all I knew. I don't listen. Maybe I made the mistake of letting everybody come down here and take advantage of my hospitality.
No, it was great. It was great that you did that, and it was super useful.
Known that months earlier. So listen, I don't know the details. What I do know is that there are concerns about how Doug handled the audit. Doug was in my house with Mike Flynn. I don't know what he was doing. And so I have concerns about what Jim Penrose. Do you know Jim?
I love Jim.
I thought Jim was a fine Christian man. I've had information now since in the last 2 or 3 weeks ago. Jim Penrose may not be who he purported himself to be. I know he was with NSA. That's all I knew. I don't listen. Maybe I made the mistake of letting everybody come down here and take advantage of my hospitality.
No, it was great. It was great that you did that, and it was super useful.
No, that months earlier.
That was Doug, and in retrospect, this was when...
I'll tell you who's the person.
It's Jovan.
Who?
It's Jovan. It's Jovan.
I've never spoken with Jovan. I don't, unless I saw him somewhere and said hello. But I've had concerns that people have brought to me just out of the community that said Jovan is not a legitimate guy. I don't know.
Well, I've heard that too.
I don't know.
That too. I don't know, because he doesn't, he's just finally getting... we don't know either about Jovan. Jovan, nothing rests on Jovan. Jovan seems to go off in his own world and research technical details.
Well, who was monitoring the $5 million whatever dollars y'all put into the audit?
That was Doug, and in retrospect, this was way beyond Doug. Doug runs a little 6-man, hyper-exclusive cyber security firm. It turns out he's not up to managing a project like this. And how it came, the grassroots movement got in Arizona that I funded I bought them pizzas in the early meetings and things like this and helped them get organized. And they got going, that grassroots movement over January, February, March got all this political pressure, got the Senate to understand the problem. And then these senators started digging, and that's what led to the audit. But when the audit came along, there was no one who would do the audit other than IBM or Doug. No one wanted, everyone was afraid for their life. So Doug, however, I would agree in retrospect, it looks like Doug was way overmatched for the job. Doug runs a little 6-man operation that goes in and looks at your computers. It turns out this was way beyond him running something like this. I would agree with that.
Well, listen, we're not going to be able to solve all those problems.
Would prevent that from possibly...
It say that I thought there ought to be an audit.
Okay. How about let's switch subjects. I'm fine with that. I'm sure all of our stuff gets audited. The American Project is a 501c4 and all the auditors. How about something else? Just so you know, I'll get to the bottom line up front. In the back of my mind for some months has been, is it going to be possible someday for me to hire Lin as an attorney? Before I tell you why, is there anything that's happened that would prevent that from possibly... Do you still have a bar license? I haven't followed your...
I still have a bar license. I'm obviously in the middle of trying to defeat the frivolous claims being brought against me by the Georgia bar. I still got an appeal in Delaware. I've got this ridiculous Michigan result where I did not even so much as breathe a breath in Michigan or even I didn't even know my name was on that complaint. So I've got to deal with that. But I was going to retire 2 years ago in Thanksgiving. I announced to my family I was going to retire, semi-retire, finish the salmon cases. And so while I still have my law license, I do not have a functioning law firm. And so I'm not really looking to get back into the practice of law. The court system is so corrupt right now that I think you don't have any idea what the rulings are going to be. unless one side has something they want and they get it, because the rule of law is being ignored or distorted or changed ridiculously. My lawsuit filed in the Supreme Court of the United States was solid black letter law, but yet they didn't review it. Something's not right.
Something's not right.
So so I would say that I'm not in a position to. Is it possible down the road that I could give you some advice as a lawyer? Yes, but it's not something I'd be in a position to do now, and might not be able to do in the future. So I would not wait around for me. I may be out of the game. Either I think voluntarily, I don't think they're going to take my law license, because their complaints against me are as big a lies as Kyle Rittenhouse has been going around telling. Gave you. So the QAnon movement really is a movement that spun out of your digital soldiers. I'm tired of these QAnon people attacking me.
Maybe, I don't know that. Yeah,
But you know some of them.
I think it's a disinformation campaign. I think it's a disinformation campaign that the CIA created. That's what I believe. Now, I don't know that for a fact, but that's what I think it is. I think it's a disinformation campaign. It's actually a very interesting article today. Now that was sent to me. I'll send it to you about how the QAnon movement has failed and all that. But I find it total nonsense, and I think it's a disinformation campaign created by the left, and the types of people that can create something like that are the kinds of people that we train for certain with certain skills in the CIA.
I'm aware that the CIA does it.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's what it was.
Yeah, I'm aware the CIA does programs where they'll give you 75% of the truth and then wrap it in a package that makes you look crazy to demean the truth they gave you. And I've always assumed that Q, as it originally started, may have been a white hat operation that got, in effect, kidnapped by the black hats, or is either a black hat or a white hat. I don't know. I don't care. What Q stood for initially, I've always believed, one, there were Q drops. I never really understood them, didn't look at them. But I understood what Q stood for. And one of the things that I feel like I'm trying to do here for myself, in terms of my faith, I believe the only issue that's before this country right now that's of primary importance is to investigate the communist effort to steal our presidency.
Wow, hope everyone's having a good Sunday. Think about what the fifth column is. Those things that I've been accused of, it's going to come dark to light who's actually guilty of that stuff. 20 years ago, my company was a domain registration company. And we registered all sorts of domain names completely automatically. And if you didn't pay the following year, we kept your name and automatically put splash pages on because we sold dirty movies back then. Registered and authorized and licensed from companies like Hustler magazine. Which, hey, maybe that's not your thing, but it's completely legal. So, the reality of what's going to come out, you guys are going to be shocked and sickened. These controversial rumors are real. They've done some really bad things. And they don't get that they think that I'm just going to shut up because I'm one of those lemmings that just follows along and does whatever. No. You kick me, I get back up, I kick you back. And you're going to lose.
You are a lieutenant colonel in the United States Army
Correct.
now. And how does the Army feel about you being head of the Temple of Set?
The Army has known about my religion for the entire span of my Army career, which began in 1968. And there was a reasonable amount of curiosity, as there has been all the way along, with what exactly is this strange and unusual thing. And I've talked about it in much the same way that I've talked here today on your show about it. And other than that, the Army has paid very little attention to it, the same as it would to anybody who is, say, a follower of Hinduism or of Buddhism or any other slightly unusual religion today.
So you just go about your Army duties and it's fine and So what happened in the ritual where someone was murdered? And how were they murdered?
They were stabbed 7 times with knives because
In Chicago.
Yes, it was
What year?
about 8 years ago. So it was about 80, 81. And the ritual was a witch's Sabbath, and it got out of hand, and the high priest brought out these 7 daggers, and they killed him in the form of a cross with the 7 daggers.
Was this person impaled against his or her will?
Yes.
Or did they wish to be sacrificed?
No, this was against his will. But
So how did you know you weren't going to be pulled in and impaled?
that's why that's one of the reasons why I got out of the church. And the other reason why I got out of the church was mentally I had a nervous breakdown after that, and I just mentally could not handle it.
How do you explain that?
My first question would be, were you a member of the Church of Satan, a card-carrying member of the Church of Satan?
Yes, sir.
And who was the grotto leader?
I don't remember his name.
You don't remember the name of a person who involved you in murder?
Not anymore, no.
problem of suicides, and you have a political system today that generally throws its hands up and doesn't know what to do because people get polarized. Look at what we have right now between the presidency and the Congress, with neither side being able to do anything anymore because they're simply at poles apart and nobody's interested in cooperating. So we've got to get people liking one another and working together. And what Mind War is suggesting is that a great deal of the factors which influence people to be this way are at the mechanical level, at the subconscious level, and can be controlled through technology, which is what the book is talking about. The danger of this, of course, is that these same technological controls could be used to control people in a negative way, to make them more antagonistic, which would lead you to an atmosphere something like Orwell's 1984. So I am taking a big leap of faith here that, as Plato contemplated, the underlying impulse of humanity is to humanity beyond being a simple experience of something in time and place as a meat machine in the universe, and raises it beyond that, frees it from that, takes you out of the restrictions of your four-dimensional existence into something else. This is a little bit like Obi-Wan Kenobi saying to Luke Skywalker, you've just taken your first step into a larger universe. So that was the experience. And when it was over, my first response to it was one of great bewilderment. I had not expected to run into Set. I had not expected the notion of creating something entirely new, such as the Temple of Set, and so radically different from what the Church of Satan had been. Up until then, I was a confirmed Satanist. I believed in Satan and the powers of darkness in that context, as we had been developing till then. This was something radically different.
Tossed to and fro, carried about with every wind of doctrine by the sleight of man, and cunning craftiness whereby they lie in wait to deceive. I'm going to repeat that. That we henceforth be no more children, tossed to and fro, and carried about with every wind of doctrine by the sleight of men, and cunning craftiness whereby they lie in wait to deceive. Stature of the fullness of Christ, that we henceforth be no more children, tossed to and fro, carried about with every wind of doctrine by the sleight of man, and cunning craftiness whereby they lie in wait to deceive.
U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel and self-professed Satanist, the late Michael Aquino, argued in his book, Mind War, that mass mind control was a much more humane alternative than to physical war. Violating, infiltrating, and thus controlling someone's or an enemy's consciousness was a science that he not only sought to know and understand, but was also paid very well by the U.S. government to do so.
To November 2015. She was on the Cultural Support Team leader in support of U.S. Army Special Operations Command. She was deployed to Afghanistan from March of 2013 to December 2013. This included dozens of helicopter infill night raids while assigned to the 75th Ranger Regiment. She was a student at the John F. Kennedy Special Warfare School, including a psychological operations PSYOP qualifications course from November of 2015 to April of 2017. She was a PSYOP officer for the Army, June of 2017 to June of 2020. She had top secret clearance for 10 years. We'll talk later why that was revoked. Distinguished military graduate, also received the Bronze Star Medal, Army Commendation Medal with 2 Oak Leaves. She received the Army Achievement with 3 Oak Leaves, Military Outstanding Volunteer Service Medal, Combat Action Badge, Parachutist Badge, valedictorian of the Special Operations Captain's Career Course, and now she's a mother getting a farm going